Did Mario Party really peak on the GameCube is a question I ask myself way more often than necessary.
Damn it, I just have to know!
When you ask fans what they think the golden era of Mario Party is, the GameCube era is the one that usually comes out on top. I own almost all of the Mario Party games myself, but I've noticed I usually gravitate towards the GameCube games too when I'm having friends over to play around. And I wonder, why is that? What did these games do that made them stand out so much, and was this era truly the peak of the Mario Party franchise? Well, I played through all 4 Mario Party games that released on the GameCube to find that out, and this is what I found. Mario Party 4 was the first game in this new generation of Mario Party games, and God, was it something to be excited about. This would be the very first time we saw Mario Party in full 3D, after the previous 3 games on the N64 had 2D pre-rendered backgrounds. This is awesome! I can wait to see what all the boards will look like. What the f am I looking at? So, we finally got the hardware capable of running 3D backgrounds, but now we are moving above the scenery on a grid. This is honestly one of my biggest disappointments with this game. We've seen what the GameCube is capable of in terms of boards in the later games, so this just feels a little underwhelming. And because the grid you walk across is just a gray slab, the boards feel just like what they are. Boards. They really lose their charm even when compared to the N64 games because all the boards feel very similar now. Because of that, the atmosphere definitely takes a hit, but what's most important is whether the boards are fun to play on. So is that the case here? Meh. Some are better than others, but my overall experience with the boards wasn't particularly great. This is mostly down to the fact that, apart from Shy Guy's Jungle Jam, all boards have some form of RNG in which path the game lets you take. Toad's Midway Madness has the teacups that change direction when someone walks past it, which can result in you just getting stuck at the beginning of the board. Goomba's Greedy Gala has the roulette wheel that randomly places you on one of the islands if you don't have enough coins to bribe Goomba. Boo's Haunted Bash as well as the Mini Bowser board have alternating bridges, which can result in you having to go all the way around to get where you want to go. And Koopa's Seaside Soiree has the Ukiki spaces, where you randomly get sent in one of 2 directions. Strategy just gets completely thrown out of the window due to all these RNG elements, which is a shame because some of the other boards like Toad's Midway Madness and Koopa's Seaside Soiree have genuine potential, but the RNG elements hurt them a lot, so we're not off to a great start. There is, however, something unique about the board game experience in this game, because there was a very heavy focus on 2 newly introduced items, the Mega and the Mini Mushroom. The Mega Mushroom turns you into a giant and has you roll 2 dice blocks. When you pass an opponent, you flatten them and take 10 coins. But it also has a downside, because you cannot enter shops, participate in events, or even buy stars when you are a giant. I think it's a really fun addition because of that, since you've got to decide whether you'll take the risks or not, which adds a new strategic dimension to the gameplay. The mini mushrooms, on the other hand, make you very tiny and allow you to partake in specific mini events, and they let you pass through certain pipes to enter restricted parts of the boards. While interesting in theory, in practice you won't be able to put them to good use very often. The dice block you roll only goes to 5, so if you want to partake in an event or go through a pipe, you already need to end up pretty close to it, and then you still have to roll high enough to reach it. It has happened way too many times that someone tried to have one of the advantages of the mini mushroom, but then ended up missing the thing they wanted to do because they didn't roll high enough. So in the end, it was never really worth it. And the last big change to the board game is the lack of dual minigames, meaning you can't challenge other players for coins or stars. I think it's a real shame these weren't brought back from previous installments, because it would always cause a fun kind of chaos, especially in the later turns, that this game lacks. We did get some other minigames in return though, because this game introduced Bowser minigames that can pop up when you land on the Bowser space. Everybody has to partake, and if you lose the minigame, you will lose whatever Bowser says, like coins or items. And these minigames would become a staple of the franchise up until Mario Party 7. I think it's a fine addition overall. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of them, because they can be ridiculously annoying, but then again, this is Mario Party we're talking about. That's kind of its thing. When looking at the board game experience as a whole though, it really isn't that great. It's still perfectly playable, but it's definitely not as good as some of the previous games on the N64. And that's not the only disappointment, because with a new game on a new console, you would probably expect to see a few new faces too. But the character roster in this game is the exact same as Mario Party 3.
Yep, that does it.
Mario Party 4 fortunately does have a bit of a saving grace in the minigames, because holy crap, this is a solid roster.
Last chance!
Whether it's the new capabilities of the GameCube or just impeccable design, Mario Party 4 has some of the absolute best minigames in the entire franchise. Dungeon Duos, Book Squirm, Mario Medley, Long Claw of the Law, Cliffhangers, and many, many more. I will say the 1v3s aren't the best the series has to offer, and there's a couple of other stinkers too, but in general, the minigames here are very solid. The only thing the roster doesn't have is a good size, because there's only 60 playable minigames, which is probably due to the lack of dual minigames. The minigames can also be enjoyed outside of the board game in a few very simple minigame modes. There's also a fairly basic solo mode you can play through that has some unique boss minigames and allows you to unlock the final board of the game. And finally, the game has some extra modes like a board game built around the new Mini and Mega Mushrooms and a bunch of high score challenge minigames. And that's basically everything the game has to offer. Overall, Mario Party 4 is a game that has two phases. On one hand, the boards look terrible, and the overall experience on them isn't anything to write home about either. But on the other hand, the game has given us some of the absolute best minigames the franchise has to offer, and the feeling of the game is definitely next gen when compared to the games on the N64. In general though, I, and probably many others, expected a little bit more from this game, especially since it was the first one on a brand new console. Not a great start for the franchise's golden era, but maybe the developers just needed some time to adjust to the new hardware, so how did they fare with a little more experience under their belt? Mario Party 5 released a year after 4, and I will say, that extra year definitely resulted in a better Mario Party game. First of all, this game already has way more of an overarching theme compared to the previous installment, that being dreams. All the boards are themed around some form of children's dream, like sweets, toys, or suffocation. Twice. And if you take a look at these boards, there is something that immediately pops out. That of course being the fact that the GameCube hardware is finally used to its full potential, meaning the boards are no longer grid-based, but actually flow through the world. This is the game where Mario Party really started to look good, and the atmosphere got way better because of it. This time around, fortunately, a bunch of the boards are actually fun to play on too. Toy Dream, Undersea Dream, and Bowser's Nightmare are all very solid, but my favorite board from this game has to be the Pirate Dream. This was the one that stood out to me from the very start, and I think that's because this board just feels like an adventure. The cliff sides, the waterfall, the pirate ship in the bay, the rolling boulder events, it all adds to an amazing experience that I still enjoy every time I play it. But not all the boards are great, unfortunately, because there's definitely some stinkers. Rainbow Dream and Future Dream both have the issue of being way too linear, resulting in a giant lack of strategy. And then there's the Sweet Dream that has alternating bridges like in some of the Mario Party 4 boards. I wasn't a fan of them in that game, and I'm not a fan of them here. So the mix of boards is a bit 50-50, some are really good and others are terrible. But even on the good boards, there's one thing that drags the board game experience in Mario Party 5 down by a lot, in my opinion. And that is how the items work in this game. The item shops are completely gone. Yes, you heard that right. The only way you can obtain items now is from capsule machines, which are placed in different locations along the board. When you pass one, you can choose to get an item or not, but you have no influence whatsoever in what that item is going to be, meaning the strategy factor surrounding items is almost completely gone. And you might be wondering, if you can only get items from capsule machines, how do you spend your coins on anything other than stars? Well, almost all capsules are traps that you could lay down on spaces, or you could pay a certain amount of coins to directly use the item on yourself if it's applicable. The problem again is that you have no influence on what items you get, meaning that 9 out of 10 times you will have items that are of no strategical use for you and you just plop them somewhere on the board to get rid of them, resulting in the board turning into a minefield of different traps. It's honestly garbage. Thankfully though, the minigames once again are of very good quality. Some of my favorites being Hydro Stars, Pushy Penguins, and of course, Hotel Goomba. It also has one of the absolute worst minigames, however, in Vicious Vending, where you quite literally crank a rod and pray. What's the point of this one? Overall though, the quality is very good, but from this point onward, that's kind of going to be the standard. In terms of quantity, however, this game also has way more minigames than Mario Party 4, and that is mostly down to the fact that the dual minigames have made their return here. And on top of that, this game introduced the Donkey Kong minigames as a contrast to the Bowser minigames introduced in Mario Party 4. While we're on the topic of Donkey Kong, now might be a good time to talk about the character roster, because there actually was quite a bit of change this time around. Because Donkey Kong is now an NPC that you can encounter when landing on his space, a new character needed to take his place. I'll miss that fucking monkey. So Toad is now a playable character instead of just being a host, and Boo and Mini Bowser, or Koopa Kid in North America, made their debut as well. I gotta say, I'm very glad with their inclusion here, because it's just fun to have some fresh faces instead of the usual 8. I especially like Mini Bowser, considering he's a character that only appears in the Mario Party games, so being able to play as him now is awesome. In general, I think Mario Party 5's board game experience is quite a bit better than Mario Party 4's, but what I was most surprised by was the amount of side content that Mario Party 5 introduced, in the form of the story mode, the minigame modes, and Super Duel mode. In the story mode, Bowser wants to take over all the dreams for some evil plan. He sends out mini Bowsers into all the dreams, and it's your job to stop them. You're not playing a regular game of Mario Party, however, because here you're playing on smaller versions of the regular boards, and the goal is to steal all of the mini Bowser's coins. To do so, you have to land on a minigame space or catch up to one of the mini Bowsers on the board to beat the living shit out of them and take all their money. You succeed once all the mini Bowsers are defeated, and you move on to the next board. In my opinion, this is a perfect way to handle the story mode. It shows you all the different boards the game has to offer, but at the same time offers a much more single-player focused gameplay that doesn't drag and isn't dependent on a luck factor. Having to rely on luck in a solo mode can get infuriating, so in my opinion, this is the perfect way to do it. Now on to the minigame modes, because there's a bunch of new ones here. Like Minigame Circuit, which is sort of like a board game centered around minigames. Minigame Wars, where you try to cover a map full of tiles, and Minigame Decathlon, where you play through 10 minigames and get points based on how well you do. It's great to see something other than the basic modes, and it makes Mario Party 5 stand out from the previous entries. And finally, there's the Super Duel mode, which I expected to be some sort of dual minigame tournament, since these minigames return in Mario Party 5. I was very surprised to learn, however, that it is instead a BattleBots-like game mode in which you can build your own battle machine and have to face off against other battle machines. So I made Fred. You can use points you collect from winning minigames to buy upgrades in different categories, and it has a rather large amount of different options. It's a surprisingly in-depth mode that I had quite a bit of fun with. Would I have minded if they'd scrapped this mode and put a little more work into the board game experience though? No, absolutely not. Looking at the complete picture, Mario Party 5 is one of the biggest Mario Party games in the entire franchise. It has 7 boards, 77 minigames, and a huge amount of minigame and extras modes. I never knew how big this game really was before making this video, and was very much surprised it had this much meat on its bones. The boards also look absolutely fantastic, and the minigames are as good as ever. I think this is the Mario Party game that feels like the first modern Mario Party in terms of visuals and content. However, this game is not without fault. The lack of strategy due to the way the items work and the many luck-based elements on some of the boards mean there's still a lot of room for improvement. It feels like the developers put more time into packing this game with as much content as possible, instead of focusing on the most important aspect, which is the board game experience. But this definitely was the game that led into the golden era of the franchise, and the next game would be the start of something beautiful. Mario Party 6 is one of the games that is often regarded as one of the competitors for best Mario Party game of all time. And I will say, after playing through it, I can definitely see why. Where Mario Party 5 was more of a quantity over quality type of game, Mario Party 6 would do the complete opposite, because the board game experience is just wow. Mario Party 6's theme revolves around an argument between the sun and the moon, and because of this, all the boards in the game have a day and nighttime mechanic like Horrorland in Mario Party 2. During night and day, all the boards have unique things happening that change the gameplay for 3 turns. For example, different paths opening up, certain events being available, or straight up changing the direction in which you move. This already makes the board game experience in Mario Party 6 one of the most unique in the series, but for the very first time, a good amount of the boards have unique ways of getting stars. No longer is the only formula to walk around the board, collect 20 coins, and buy a star. 2 of the boards, Towering Treetop and Eget's Garage, are still basic Mario Party, but all the other boards have a unique gimmick. Fair Square has the star stay in one place, but you can buy up to 5 of them at once, and the price changes from 20 coins once nighttime comes around. Castaway Bay is more of a movement-based board, where you rush to the end of the map to get a star from Donkey Kong, but when someone gets a star or lands on a certain happening space, Bowser takes DK's place and takes a star away from you when you get there. Clockwork Castle has you chasing Donkey Kong around during daytime and running away from Bowser during nighttime. And on Snowflake Lake, everybody starts with 5 stars, but you can steal stars from other players by riding on Chain Chomps. There's a lot more reason now to pick one of the boards over the others, because almost all of them offer a different playstyle. And if I'm being honest, this is the first game in the franchise that in my opinion doesn't have a single bad board. I enjoy playing on every single one of them, and I love that each board feels so different from one another. Only took them 6 games. The board game experience improved in another way though, because the item shops have made their glorious return, meaning there's finally a bit of strategy surrounding items again. Because there are only 3 items in the shop at a time, there's still a little bit of a luck factor, but it's nowhere near as bad as Mario Party 5. And there's one item in particular that adds to strategy even more. That being the sluggish shroom that makes the dice block go slower so you can decide what number you want to roll. This might just be my favorite item in this game because it allows you to actually plan ahead without having to rely on luck all the time. But the trap items also work way better than in Mario Party 5 now, because now when you place a trap somewhere, you can actually see that it's yours, and when someone lands on that, you are the one who benefits. Items as a whole are much more strategic now, meaning that the board game experience feels the best that it's ever been. The minigames are once again very good, but what's cool about them in this game specifically is that they change in visuals depending on if it's day or night on the board. And on top of that, Mario Party 6 also introduced a brand new form of minigames, all centered around the peripheral the game came with. That being this beautiful gray stick, the GameCube microphone. This is such an odd piece of gaming history that was used in GameCube games. Mario Party 6 adapted this thing in a couple of different ways. Firstly, a couple of 1v3 minigames where one player uses the microphone to shout commands and the other players use their controllers. I can already hear you think, there's no way that works well, but surprisingly, it's a pretty accurate microphone, and because of that, the minigames you play with it are actually really fun. Obviously, it's a complete gimmick, but one that fits Mario Party very well, and there's even some other side modes that solely use the microphone to play, which are solid too. It again adds to the uniqueness of Mario Party 6 and gives you all the more reason to give this game a try today. But it doesn't stop there, because the single player mode in Mario Party 6 is unlike any of the other games too. The single player is mostly focused on collecting minigames. You move along one of 3 tiny boards, and different spaces you land on trigger different minigames. If you win said minigame, you collect it and it becomes available in free play. This is a great way to collect all of the minigames because 9 out of 10 times the minigame wheel will actually land on a minigame you don't already have. That or I just got incredibly lucky. It's not just the regular minigames you can collect though, because landing on the final space of the board unlocks a rare minigame, which are basically just extras modes like the ones in Mario Party 5. You don't want to overshoot the final space on the board, however, because you'll f***ing die. And if that wasn't enough, you also lose all of the minigames you have collected in that game. But luckily, you can also choose to leave the board earlier and secure everything you've collected. And that's basically what the single player mode has to offer. It's not a long mode, but rather a very practical one that is great fun to play by yourself, so I'm a fan. Playing the single player also has another perk though, because you also collect coins on the board, and every 10 coins you collect turn into a star. Which brings me to the star bank. This is the game's way of unlocking certain things. Everything you do in the game results in getting stars, which are stored in the bank. And you can use these stars to buy extra modes, difficulties, the final board in the game, and the only newly introduced character, Toadette, which I think is a great addition to the roster because now there's a different female character other than just the two princesses. The star bank is very similar to Mario Party 1 and 2, and as you may remember from the previous video in which I looked at the 3 Mario Party games on the N64, I hated that mechanic. In this game, however, collecting stars goes very quickly, especially when playing single player. I honestly think this is once again handled very well, because now you do still have a sense of progression by unlocking a few things, but it's not as tedious as in the games on the N64. It's just well done again. And that's Mario Party 6 for you. You might have noticed, I didn't really have anything negative to say about this game. And well, that's just because this is an incredible Mario Party game. It has basically everything you could have wanted. An interesting theme, great boards, good minigames, a fun gimmick, a solid single player, and virtually no flaws. Like, it might not have the amount of side content Mario Party 5 had, but it's very clear the board game was the main focus this time, and it shows. Mario Party 6 is amazing, and in my opinion leaves every game up to this point in the dust. But there's still one final game on the GameCube left to cover, so can the franchise get even better? Let's find out. Mario Party 7 had the difficult task of following up the best game in the franchise thus far, and honestly, it does a pretty decent job. Mario Party 7's theme is a cruise around the world, and because of that, all the boards in the game are themed after different countries and cities, like Venice, China, Egypt, Las Vegas, and the Netherlands, baby. That's right, f*** you Germany, f*** you France, f*** you Spain, we've got a Mario Party board. And then there's also a Bowser themed board, but I unfortunately have not unlocked that yet. More on that in a bit. The boards all have their own gimmicks again, like in Mario Party 6. Grand Canal is a very good standard Mario Party board. Pagoda Peak is probably my favorite board in the game and has you racing to the top of a mountain. The price of the star starts at 10 but goes up every time someone buys one, with a maximum price of 40 coins. And the price can also change when someone lands on certain happening spaces, which can make it quite hectic. Pyramid Park is very similar to Snowflake Lake, with everybody starting with 5 stars and having to steal the stars from opponents with chain chomps. This is a fun one, but I think I prefer Snowflake Lake because of Mario Party 6's day and night cycle. Then Neon Heights introduces a new style of gameplay where 3 chests are spread across the board, one containing the star, one containing coins, and the last one blowing you to bits. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of this one, because it adds a lot of randomness and can feel a little unfair at times. This board also has a couple of events to trigger, which can be quite fun, but it does mean a game on this board often drags on for quite a bit. This is definitely my least favorite in the game. Windmillville, however, is very cool. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm Dutch. This board has a very unique playstyle that is all centered around investing in windmills. There's a couple of them spread across the map, some of them being worth 1 star, some being worth 2 stars, and one of them being worth 3. You can invest coins into these windmills, and when you have the most coins invested, the windmill becomes yours and you'll receive the amount of stars it is worth. When somebody outbids you, however, the stars will go to them. It's a game of strategic investments and saving coins for the right time. It's honestly a very good one. So Mario Party 7 has solid boards again. Maybe not as good as Mario Party 6, but definitely a good lineup. In terms of items, this game is structured just like 6-2, which is good because that worked very well. What I like in this game specifically though is how a handful of the boards have their own unique items that play into their mechanics. Like the cannon and bob-omb orbs in Pagoda Peak, the Lakitu orb in Neon Heights, and the bandit orb in Windmillville. It all makes the boards feel that much more unique and greatly improves the experience. And the game also introduced character-specific items this time, kinda like in Mario Kart Double Dash. Mario and Luigi, for example, get the Fireball Orb, and Wario and Waluigi get a Vacuum Orb. I think it's a pretty fun addition, because now picking a character doesn't just boil down to choosing whoever you like, but there's actually a reason to pick one over the other. All characters needed a partner because of this, so now 2 new characters made their debut in this game. Drybones was introduced to partner up with Boo, and Birdo's here for the first time to partner with Yoshi. I think both of these characters are decent enough additions, but Mini Bowser was cut from the roster, which I think I would have liked to see more than Drybones. But it's not a huge deal, of course, like it doesn't affect my life or anything. I'm very sorry, but we just can't hire you because Mini Bowser isn't a playable character in Mario Party 7.
Well, ain't that a bitch?
Something that does remain from Mario Party 6, however, is the use of the GameCube microphone. There's quite a few 4-player and 1v3 minigames that use it, which again is fun because the microphone works really well. There's no specific mic mode anymore, but there is a new type of mic minigame you can encounter on the board. You can bet a bunch of coins before the minigame, and if you win, you'll double them. In these minigames, you have to remember a bunch of fruit cards and say the correct word into the microphone when a card is pointed at. I think this is a bit too easy though, and it very often results in doubling your coins. When it does go wrong, however, it can really shake things up, so overall I think it's a pretty fun addition. The other minigames are very good once again, the minigame modes are decent, and there's a unique 8-player mode this time around, where 2 people can share a controller to play minigames. This is honestly a very interesting addition. It works surprisingly well and gives Mario Party 7 something very unique, because this has never been done again to my knowledge. It is only 10 minigames though, so it's not very substantial, and 8 people don't even fit in my room, so I will never get to use this the way it was intended, but hey, it sure is unique. The solo mode, however, I'm not the biggest fan of. You just go around all the boards completing certain objectives. This is a fine way of playing solo, but I got stuck on Pagoda Peak because luck plays a pretty big role on that one. So it just took way too long to clear the objectives, and I have better things to do. Like playing Mario Party 6. It's fine, but it can just get a little infuriating, and because I got stuck I never unlocked the final board in the game. One final aspect that I think makes this game overall very fun to play though, is the writing. Yes, I am seriously going to talk about the writing in a Mario Party game. Bowser is just this super cartoony villain saying stuff like, "Man, I'm so evil, I love it." Mini Bowser is just a very scared and annoying helper, but my favorite NPC has to be Toadsworth. He just feels like a very British old man. Like, just look at this line.
"Ah, cracking, let us set sail, get ready to party on, old bean."
And because of the writing and the World Tour theming, this game just has a lot of personality, and that makes it ever so fun to play. Even though I might have had quite some points of critique on this game compared to Mario Party 6, Mario Party 7 is still an incredible Mario Party game that is leagues above games like 4 and 5. The board game experience is great, it has some unique features like the character-specific items and a player mode, and the writing is just the best it has ever been. The few issues I do have with this game are all very minor, and this is still one of the games I gravitate towards when I'm playing around with some friends. And overall, this game was just a great conclusion to the GameCube era of the franchise. And those were all the Mario Party games on the GameCube. So now to answer the question if Mario Party really peaked on the console, I'd have to say yes. But this era definitely isn't without its flaws. Mario Party 4 is quite an underwhelming game, and Mario Party 5 did get a lot better, but would have hugely benefited from a bigger focus on the party mode. I'd say that Mario Party's golden era started with Mario Party 6. That game is genuinely amazing and by far the best game on the GameCube. And 7 was a tiny step back from 6, but still was a fantastic Mario Party experience. However, the golden era of the franchise doesn't end with the final game on the GameCube, because the streak of good games would continue on the Wii before something would shake up the franchise like never before. So be sure to subscribe and tune in for the next video in this series, in which we will be diving into the 3 games that released on the Wii and Wii U to find out how the franchise would spiral into disarray right after hitting its peak. Also, be sure to like this video if you enjoyed, and if you'd like to support me a little extra, I also have memberships now, which grant you early access to new videos and a shout out at the end of videos. And if you'd like to see more of my Mario Party content, might I suggest the previous video in this series in which I dove into the 3 games on the N64 to find out if they're still worth the hype after all these years.